support the well-being and care of all citizens. And for more information, these services can be found on the ministry's website, www.social.gov.tt. And as I mentioned earlier, today's topic focuses on family violence as a cycle. And joining me to discuss this is Mr. Luke Sinnett, CSW, BSc, MSW, who is a family service social worker with the National Family Services Division under the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, with over a decade of experience in the NGO and public sector. Sinnett served on numerous civil society organizations, the Social Displacement Unit, a National Family Service Division in the Ministry of Social Development of Trinidad and Tobago. Also joining our panel this afternoon is Mrs. Aisha Corby, who is a clinical psychologist with over 15 years' experience delivering therapeutic support to adult and child survivors of crime, and she has facilitated workshops on topics such as crisis, trauma, and family violence. Mrs. Corby holds a Master of Science in Clinical Psychology and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Management. She's a certified mediator with the Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago. She serves on national communities in areas of domestic violence, human trafficking, and child abuse, to name a few. And rounding off today's panel is Claire Guy Allen, who is a woman superintendent of police within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the TTPS. She hails from the beautiful island of Tobago and was selected by the Commissioner of Police and placed in charge of the Special Victims Department within the TTPS in January of 2021. This unit amalgamated the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Child Protection Unit, and the Sexual Offences Unit. She is the holder of a Bachelor's of Law degree with honours from the University of London. And now, before we get to the discussions, viewers at home, remember you can send your questions via our TTT Live online Facebook page, and or you can give us a call at 622-4010. Stay with us. We're going to get into the discussion right after this break.
Are you on board yet? Don't line up. Sign up and enjoy the convenience of the direct deposit system from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Yes, convenience is at your fingertips when you sign up to receive your disability assistance and public assistance grants and senior citizens pension directly from your bank account. No need to worry. Your money is safe and free from fraud and theft. So avoid lining up and try signing up. Log on to www.social.gov.tt or visit your local board office for more details and sign up today. Remember, direct deposit. It's fast, it's easy, and it's safe. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, helping, empowering, transforming lives.
Welcome back to It's Family Time. Let's talk as we kick off the discussion now, discussing family violence as a cycle, the impact on secondary victims, and bystander apathy. And we jump straight into it as we get to our first guest this afternoon, and this is Mrs. Aisha Corby, who is a clinical psychologist, as we are talking about family violence as a cycle. Mrs. Corby, tell us, what exactly is family violence? What are we talking about when we talk about family violence?
Good afternoon, Rian. Good afternoon to your viewers, and happy Sunday afternoon to all of Trinidad and Tobago and our viewers. So family violence, put simply, is where a member of the family perpetrates harm to members of the household. And that harm could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be financial harm, it could be also emotional or psychological harm. And those are the categories that we have currently within our Act in Trinidad and Tobago. And it can be persons that are within the household or persons where there is a familial relationship, but they no longer reside in the household.
So it's once it's basically a member of the family, whether
Yes.
it's living in the household or extended outside of.
Correct.
Right. So tell me, though, the effects of family violence, because we see it so often, we hear about it so often. We see some of the effects as well in our young children. What are some of the effects that family violence and viewing family violence can have?
So family violence has far-reaching effects. And to the children themselves, is a whole menu or range of effects to children. So if we just look at family violence effects, initially, we have the physical effects, of course, bruises, injuries, which could lead to even short or long-term medical complications. You have the psychological effects, where persons may develop some mental health issues coming out of it. You have issues that may come out of living years within fear or depression. You have anxiety can creep in. You have persons that may develop other type of mental health illnesses, difficulty managing relationships, difficulty in terms of your work performance. So those can be some of the emotional or psychological effects. But then also you may have effects such as economic effects. You're unable to sustain your job because you may have to move, or your work productivity would have reduced because of the violence, or the person may be stalking you at your workplace, and so employers may have let you go. So you've lost earnings. So those are some of the effects to the individual for family violence. When we look at children, so the research shows that children that would have witnessed violence, they are susceptible to what is called adverse childhood experiences, which is a range of negative experiences that can follow you throughout your life. So for the child, you may have fear, you may have sadness, you may have anxiety creeping in with the child, you may have depression. And of course, coming out of Mental Health Awareness Week this week, we have depression is closely linked to suicide and suicide ideations. For the children also, you may have some more long-term and ingrained effects. Research shows that there are neurological effects in terms of how the child's brain works. So we may see it in terms of this decreased academic performance, but actually the child's IQ can reduce. The child's ability to retain, so the child's memory, attention, concentration in school, all those things can be affected in an adverse way for children. Children are affected at all different levels, from in the womb straight up to older teenagers. Persons may not think that children in the womb are actually affected. So the research also shows that. So violence in the family has far-reaching effects, and unfortunately they live on in children even after the violence ends.
And I want to touch on that too, but I wanted to just reiterate what you said. You know, even in the womb, the child can feel vibrations, they hear the loudness, the volumes and different things while they're still in the room, and that can actually shock, I'm sure, a child while in vitro. But I also wanted to touch on, because you said, this has a long-term effect on the child. So the child is seeing this as a child, but what are some of the effects it can have long-term? So how does it affect a child seeing this as a child, but now as an adult?
Right.
How is this, manifested as an adult? What type of behavior now can we see adults behaving, showing, having been as a child, a victim of a family violence?
Right. So adult survivors of those that would have witnessed abuse in the home, right? So you have difficulty with relationships. Oftentimes persons may end up in relationships where their partner resembles the offending parent. And they would have seen sometimes unhealthy relationships at home. So it would have been normalized to them that this is okay. So hitting is not so bad because my mom and dad would have gone through it and they stuck together for years. It's a part of all relationships. So in terms of the type of abuse or the type of violence, how aggression is displayed, those things are sometimes misappropriated when you become an adult because of how your childhood would have been skewed. You have persons that may grow up as an adult and they may develop things like this hypervigilance out of proportion, right? Where they can't spend time alone very easily, or they hear a noise and they may jerky. So they have a little elevated sense of their calm or their anxiety, the fears that we live.
Yes.
Yeah, that type of anxiety that they exist in becomes like a norm for some adults. In terms of how they bounce back from stressful situations is also another important cue, because how we bounce back, which would be viewed as resilience, how we bounce back from stressful situations would determine our susceptibility to more intense psychological issues, like psychotic issues, like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and those things. But it really starts in terms of how you deal with stresses in life and the volume of stress that you've been exposed to. And that's where the brain tends to work a little differently when you're bombarded with a lot of stress and difficulty coping with it.
Let's jump it with Claire Guy Allen, because you are a superintendent of police with the TTPS and also assigned to the Special Victims Unit. With respect to violence in the home, family violence, how can someone report issues like this if they know or think that something is happening? They're hearing these loud noises, they're hearing the arguing and that type of thing. They may not physically see, as Ms. Corby said, bruises and things like that, but you're hearing this. What can an individual do if they think that something is going on there and they want to protect the family that's in that home?
Excellent. One of the things we would not encourage is something that we call, and it's your topic today, that bystander apathy, where you see something and you say nothing. Whenever you do that, the violence or domestic violence or family violence is perpetuated more. It happens in frequency and it happens with severity leading to death. So we encourage persons to make the reports. And how you can do that is by calling 999-800-TIPS, any police station throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and also the Special Victims Department. Now, you may hear persons saying that they want to remain anonymous. That's fine. Because what we really need within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is the information. So we are asking persons, when you see violence, report it. We have had instances where persons would report the violence, and when the police responds, the victim, because domestic violence is really something else, and if you don't have that support, it continues. The victim will deny. We will see swollen eyes. And the victim will deny, no, that's okay, I fell down some steps. And that is why we have to create within the TTPS, and our Commissioner of Police have recognized that. So that is why there is a Special Victims Department with these trained officers to receive these reports and treat them with the seriousness and urgency that is required. We also have where the TTPS, besides the Special Victims Department that is trained, the entire TTPS under the UN Spotlight Initiative, there is a module that is embodied in the Police Training Academy where every police officer would be trained to be a special victims officer and respond to these reports in the desired way it is supposed to be reported and responded to.
Fantastic. We are going to get some more questions because I want to find out, we're going to take a short break, but I want to find out from the Family Service Unit how they actually get involved with it. Plus, we're going to continue some more discussions with respect to family violence and how it affects other things as well, and what we can do to probably curb it in a sense. And don't forget as well that you too can join the conversation. Please, all our viewers this afternoon, TTT Live Online, that's our Facebook page, and you can also call us at 622-4010. That's how you can get in touch with us. So please do that. Check out the Facebook page, TTT Live Online, or you can give us a call while we're live, 622-4010. We'll be right back. We take a short break. Stay with us.
The National Family Services Division of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services extends its support and commitment to individuals, families, and households. These support services include counseling and psychosocial support, workshops and webinars, and sensitization sessions under the parenting unit. Support to grandparents raising their grandchildren under the grandparenting program. Support is offered anonymously and free of charge. For more information, please call the National Family Services Division at 623-2608, extension 6701 to 6711. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Helping, empowering, transforming lives.
Are you on board yet? Don't line up. Sign up and enjoy the convenience of the direct deposit system from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Yes, convenience is at your fingertips when you sign up to receive your disability assistance and public assistance grants and senior citizens pension directly from your bank account. No need to worry. Your money is safe and free from fraud and theft. So avoid lining up and try signing up. Log on to www.social.gov.tt or visit your local board office for more details and sign up today. Remember, direct deposit. It's fast, it's easy, and it's safe. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Helping, empowering, transforming lives.
Welcome back. It's family time. Let's talk. That is what we are doing this afternoon. And a reminder to viewers at home, you can send us your questions via our TTT Live online Facebook page, and you can also give us a call at 622-4010. Very important topic we are discussing here this afternoon, family violence. It happens way too often, and not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but of course we're specific to our country. The impact on secondary victims as well as bystander apathy, which we touched on a little bit a while ago, and we found out some of what it is with respect to family violence. We're going to go back to that a little bit more. I do believe we have a question, and I will get to that very shortly. How would you advise children or report family violence without them getting into trouble? That's a good question. How would you advise children or report family violence without getting them into trouble? So maybe you could answer that, Superintendent.
Yes, one of the things that we can have our children, because all children have devices now.
Yes.
What they can do, there is the child line. So if they make the report to the child line or even to the police, we will get to the home to ensure the safety of that child. Because remember, the information would only come from the police. So we would know how to handle that information skillfully in order to protect that child. If the child has to be removed from the home, the Children Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, we would make contact with them, and they would also find housing for that child.
Do you get, as you know, you say that, do you get many reports from children themselves about being abused?
We do.
Yeah?
We do get reports, whether it's from the child itself or from a teacher, a caregiver, you know, somebody who the child trusts. We get the reports.
And then, of course, you do your investigation.
Yes, we do.
And with respect to that now, we're going to go to Luke Sinnett, who is, in fact, a family service social worker with the Family Services Division as well. In the instance that, you know, there are reports of family violence, and, you know, it indicates that there is family violence taking place in the home, what services do the ministry provide in situations such as those?
Well, the ministry provides counseling services, and so you can get in contact and get a social worker, but also we have a crisis hotline, and that's 800-COPE. And so this is any time of the day or night, any day of the week, you call 800-HOPE. There's going to be a listener there who is skillful enough to be able to kind of answer your questions, as well as guide you and link you with a social worker. A lot of the things that happen, I mean, police really have to get involved. So some of those things, you know, we kind of have to refer to the police officers. But when you have to get that long-term counseling, so if the child has to get that long-term counseling, a victim has to get that long-term counseling, or sometimes even a perpetrator might kind of come to their senses and want to change their life, those long-term things come across to the ministry. So very, very often we will get a referral from victim and witness support. Very often we get referrals from the Children's Authority and from other places as well.
Are instances of abuse, when they're reported and you're dealing with them, is it mandatory that it be reported to the police service?
Yes. And so some things are mandatory, and we have to communicate that to the client when they come in. You have to be very upfront about it, because what we don't want is that the client feels that they're betrayed. You know, so it can't be something clandestine or hidden. You're very upfront with the client and let them know that this has to be reported, and that connection is made.
Yeah, because I know sometimes people will come in and they just want to talk, they just want to hash it out and, you know, try to see if they can come to some amicable something, but
Right.
that's not always the case. But something like that, it needs to be reported as well and investigated, especially if it, you never know, can get to an extent that, you know, unfortunately, I don't want to say leads to death, but sometimes that does happen.
And under the laws of the Domestic Violence Amendment Act, social workers and certain categories of persons are mandated by law to report. Caregivers, teachers,
Doctors.
social workers, doctors, nurses, those persons are mandated to report any suspicion they have of domestic violence, or they would have to answer a question before the law.
Yeah, and I think before people start to get mad and angry and oh, you told the police and whatever, they need to understand that that is the law.
Yes.
You know, it is the law. Don't want to break the law. This is what's supposed, and it's for your benefit.
Yes.
Basically, it's to help you. As we're talking about that, you know, there's also the thing about secondary victims. Right. What exactly would you say is a secondary victim, Aisha Kobi?
So that would be the person who is just not directly in receipt of the abuse or the offense. But it could be persons around. So it could be children, it could be persons in your neighborhood, it could be your family members who do not live in that space, but they are somewhat impacted by what the abuse is doing to you, right? So how that affects them in terms of just their operations and their interactions with you as well can be restricted because of how the abuse is affecting you, right? So I mentioned before with children, in terms of how children are affected from witnessing it, because sometimes persons may say, he is a really good father, right? But he is just, I can't live with him because he hurts me. So an individual, I have some challenges with that in terms of where someone would abuse their partner, but be a really good father, right? So in those instances, a person may be very well in terms of how they take care of the child and providing for them and spending time with the child, but they are abusing the adult with whom they have the relationship. And we're seeing, if I were to go into a little further, the other effects on children, right, that we're seeing happening as well, in terms of a lot of aggressive behavior sometimes you may see with children, and we're seeing some of it that may be showing up in our schools. Right? And a lot of violence that may be happening across schools. Sometimes it could have started where the child would have been seeing this type of violence happening at home, right? So this is how they respond to challenges, this is how they respond to conflict, so they replicate it. And the truth is that oftentimes the behaviors that we do at home that we think don't affect children, we are actually mirroring what children may view to be appropriate behavior. You may have very aggressive play, but in a flip side to the aggression, you may have the child that may be withdrawn, isolated, not talking as much as they used to. And that's the child that we really need to look out for, because the whole issue of suicide ideations and how depression presents may be occurring with that child. You have the child that may have plummeted academic performance as well. So all of those things, sometimes the physical part, but sometimes the child may develop some medical issues as well, coming out of the trauma that they would have experienced from witnessing the violence in the home.
So in instances like that, who sees that? Who observes that this is happening to these individuals? And who does anything about it?
Right, right. And I think that's why the work that the three of us do here is so critical. We are the victim and witness support unit, so we would see children, adults, elderly as well, that may be affected by violence. So it may be reported to the Special Victims Department and would be referred to us. And we sometimes are able to sensitize parents or mothers, particularly, who may decide that, you know what, I will stay until they are 18. It's not so bad. But when you educate them as to the effects and they realize that, okay, I really have been observing these things with my children, but I didn't know it's connected to that. So sometimes the victim or the person who is living through the abuse is not really sensitized or educated to identify these are the flags of the impact on my children, right? So in addition to that, teachers who would see changes in children are able to identify, and they're encouraged to highlight it, communicate with the parent, or even engage their social support systems within the school system as well. National Family Services, I imagine, when they do counseling with families, they are able to also, similarly to us, educate the family as to listen, you may be seeing this now, but this is the beginning of a lot of adverse effects you could be having with your child.
And you know, as Aisha talks about that, Luke, I wanted to find out what, because so much of the time I think that people don't report things. People don't say that this is, even if they might observe some sort of behavior, they don't say anything or do anything about it. Is there anything the National Family Services Division is actually doing to, you know, as Aisha said, educate and inform parents, listen, these are some red flags and you need to recognize these red flags and we are here for you if you see something happening. What does the National Family Services do with respect to that?
Well, there are a range of trainings that we do on a regular basis, so it's, you know, kind of almost in a cycle. And what we want to do is, you know, talk a lot about parenting, sometimes about co-parenting, managing conflict within the home, identifying issues with domestic violence, identifying signs and behaviors of a child who might be abused. And so several different kinds of trainings that we do on a regular basis to communicate to persons. So that's one. The other thing is that we are able to take in clients not just by the client calling. So sometimes it might be that somebody else is calling on behalf of the person, and that can work as well. We just need to know how to contact the person, a little bit of information about what's going on. And as well, you know, we kind of inform the person, you need to tell them that we're going to call, because we don't want this to be an adversarial kind of interaction.
And then all of a sudden somebody turns up here at the door and is like, what you doing here? No, nothing going on?
Right.
Somebody report me? You know, so we don't want that.
Correct. Also, a huge part of the work, sometimes particularly with issues of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, is counseling the person on how to leave. Because sometimes it's so difficult to understand or difficult to wrap your mind around it when you're in the middle of the crisis. It's difficult to think very logically. And so it's about, you know, listen, have you copy the birth certificates, copy of this, put some money aside, pack a bag, who you're going to go by, like plan it out, so that when the time comes, the opportunity presents itself, you're better able to make a good jump.
Yeah, and that segues right into where I was going with Claire Guy Allen, Superintendent, because you mentioned as well, you know, people who are abused, and it's men and women. We're not just saying it's just women, men, women, children, anyone can be abused. You get a report and you go to wherever it is, and the person says, no, I'm fine, and you're seeing the black eye and that type of thing. How do you deal with a situation like that? What's the next step that you do when that person doesn't want to leave and there's repeat violence in that relationship? How does the police service treat with that?
Right, but the police service, we are about prevention as well. So even though we respond to the report and we do not say who reported it to the police, once we see those signs, we try to use that opportunity as a teaching moment to let the perpetrator, we'll talk to the entire family and the victim with the injuries, and we'll say, here, what's happening? You may not be ready to come forward now. We are seeing so and so. However, we would like you to understand that there is help, and we will try to educate at that time. Because I'll tell you something. With the formation of the Special Victims Department, we are engaged in so much outreach and sensitization throughout the community, schools, churches, organizations. And a lot of times you would hear survivors saying, I'm so grateful for you all coming because I did not even realize I was in an abusive relationship. So every opportunity the TTPS has, we try to educate the public on domestic and family violence.
So we've still got so much more to talk about because, as the superintendent says, sometimes you may not even realize that you're in an abusive relationship. So we're going to define and try to figure out, how do you know that you're in an abusive relationship? We're going to talk some more with Ms. Aisha Kobe about that. So stay with us. We'll be right back right after this. And don't forget, you can post your questions on TTT Live online on our Facebook page, or give us a call at 622-4010. We'll be right back.
Are you on board yet? Don't line up. Sign up and enjoy the convenience of the direct deposit system from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Yes, convenience is at your fingertips when you sign up to receive your disability assistance and public assistance grants and senior citizens pension directly from your bank account. No need to worry. Your money is safe and free from fraud and theft. So avoid lining up and try signing up. Log on to www.social.gov.tt or visit your local board office for more details and sign up today. Remember, direct deposit. It's fast, it's easy, and it's safe. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, helping, empowering, transforming lives.
The National Family Services Division of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services extends its support and commitment to individuals, families, and households. These support services include counseling and psychosocial support, workshops and webinars, and sensitization sessions under the parenting unit, support to grandparents raising their grandchildren under the grandparenting program. Support is offered anonymously and free of charge. For more information, please call the National Family Services Division at 623-2608, extension 6701 to 6711. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, helping, empowering, transforming lives.
Are you on board yet? Don't line up. Sign up and enjoy the convenience of the direct deposit system from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Yes, convenience is at your fingertips when you sign up to receive your disability assistance and public assistance grants and senior citizens pension directly from your bank account. No need to worry. Your money is safe and free from fraud and theft. So avoid lining up and try signing up. Log on to www.social.gov.tt or visit your local board office for more details and sign up today. Remember, direct deposit. It's fast, it's easy, and it's safe. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, helping, empowering, transforming lives.
And we're back. It's family time. Let's talk. And we are talking family violence. The family violence, that's a cycle. Violence is a cycle. The impact on secondary victims and bystander apathy as well. Things that we are trying to talk about and see if we can avoid those things happening. Now, I did say that you can actually go to our TTT Live online Facebook page, post your questions. You can also call us at 622-4010 as well, live. Right now, the show is on live, and we did get a question via our Facebook page, and the question is, there was a stigma, and I should say there was a stigma. There is still, I think, somewhat in the police service whereby they treat family violence as a domestic situation and not get too involved. Has there been a change over the years whereby these reports are taken more seriously? And of course, that goes to Superintendent Claire Guy Allen. So
yes, and that is why training is so critical to change the mindset, because traditionally, persons feel that domestic violence is something that happened behind closed doors, and there it was supposed to remain. The point is, people are coming forward and making their reports, and under the Domestic Violence Act, police officers are mandated to record the report, respond to the report, and provide the person who is making the report, whether that person is a victim or another person, you are to provide that person with a copy of the report, what I would call the receipt of the report. So police officers who are not responding to the report, they're in breach of the laws, and disciplinary action can also be instituted against those persons.
because, very often you still hear to an extent, people saying, oh, if someone goes to the station, man or woman, doesn't have to be, there's always that stigma attached to it's only women. It's not. Men as well go to the police station to make a report, and the police just like, you will get over that. Go back now. It's not a big thing, and especially with men, they get laughed at. What does a person do in a situation like that?
It is really sad, and I want to apologize, and we want to get rid of that attitude entirely from in the TTPS. However, if a survivor experiences that, whether it's a male or female or a child experience that kind of behavior, it's a no-no, it's not acceptable. We are asking persons, it's a little onerous to ask a victim to go to another station, because you can make a report at any police station. The Commissioner of Police has a one-door policy. So whatever station or, unit that you are comfortable going to make this report, you go there. Or you can call in. Because what we do at the Special Victims Department, once we get a call, we make contact with the survivor. And the first question we would ask, do you want to come to us, or do you want us to come to you? Some persons like to come because where they are living, it's not private, where the interview can take place privately. So they come to us. We would even come and pick you up if you want us to come to the home. And we will convey you to a police station or anywhere that you are comfortable being interviewed, so that this matter could be investigated.
I want to ask as well about restraining orders, because sometimes you hear restraining orders are given out, and then you hear worst case scenario, things happen. How does that work?
And for a lot of persons will say protection orders and restraining orders don't work. My thing is, I believe in it. It works. The thing about those orders is enforcement. Whenever they are breached, it must be reported and it must be investigated. And if persons are culpable, once we get a statement, we got witnesses, we are going to charge. We have times where persons, applicants or the victim or survivor, who would call that, they would have protection orders in force or in place. And we would have where the applicant is actually encouraging the breaches of these orders. What we try to explain to the public is this. If it is you have reconciled and there's a protection order in place, go back to the court, seek the audience of the court and have that protection order cancelled, because you could be held accountable. And the point is, you would have taken out the protection order to protect yourself and your family, because orders now under the Act, they may be issued for John Brown, but these orders cover everyone in the household. So it could be the children, other family members and siblings. That order covers everyone who is in the household. So when you breach that order against everyone.
And I don't think people realize that.
Yes.
Is there anything, Luke, that family service can get involved with respect to that?
This is the protection orders?
Yes.
Well, a lot of what happens is, as I was saying, counseling the person through the process. If somebody decides that they want to get back with their partner, but there's a protection order, then we need to be able to explain to them what are the consequences of that. Right. But also how to recognize what the cycle looks like. Yes. Because sometimes it really is just the cycle playing itself out. And so things look like it's getting back together. You move back, and all of a sudden it starts back up again. And now you back at the court, or you back at the police station, and even other family members might be saying, "You see, I tell you," or may not want to get involved because they feel like, if I get involved, she only going to go back again, or he only going to go back again. So a lot of it is talking the person through that process, being able to recognize the stuff, being able to know when it's happening, and being able to know when to make that break.
I love that you're making my job so much easier, Luke, because I was getting back to the cycle. And we need to recognize that cycle. And we need to see how that cycle works. Tell us, Aisha Kobi, what is that cycle that we see? We have this argument, we make up, we kiss and make up, and we're back to square one.
And I really echo Lou's sentiments, because we see it all the time at the Victim and Witness Support Unit. So the cycle started off with the 3 phases, which would be, you have the tension building phase, where things may be, well, of course, first it's calm, but then there's a tension building phase where the responses or how persons respond is just a little out of proportion, or you may be walking on eggshells a bit, right? And you realize, okay, he or she, he's not having a good day today. Yeah. Following that tension building phase, it usually would have some level of explosion, or some level of assault, or some level of abuse, whether it be verbal, whether it be physical or so. And following that abusive stage, or the assault phase, it will come with a lot of, I apologize, I'm sorry about it, I really didn't mean to do it, or sometimes this is what you make me do, or I just had a hard day at work today, you know, let's work it out, you know, we've come so far, etc. Let's say the person is getting deeper insight, the survivor that is, and they're realizing, okay, this is not what I'm worth, or this is not what I should be taking, so maybe I should leave. So any thoughts about leave or statements about leave can come with a response of, we've gone through this so long, we have so much invested, you know, your family or your friends, they don't know how much we've been through to give all that up. Let's work it out. Everybody has issues. So that now, the vic or the survivor would then decide to give the person another chance, or give credence to those statements, and then it can be followed with a state of peace and bliss that may resemble what they call the honeymoon phase. So that honeymoon phase may involve more apologies, presents, gifts, going out to dinner, more intimacy, things that what you would have always wanted the relationship to be like, but it's just for a moment. But you don't know that it's for a moment, because you've wanted this so much that you get kind of fixated in this stage that it's happening. He's changed or she's changed. Things are better now. And bear in mind that better state happens at a time where you're already isolated from any social support from the outside. Because family and friends have seen this happening, so or you may not have been engaging with them as much as before, because your world has been shrinking to around this person, or just this person and the children. So you don't have much support or other opinions from anyone else on the outside. Honeymoon phase happens, and it's just wonderful. Then there's a calm, and then we have the tension happening again. And it goes around, and sometimes the honeymoon phase may last a bit, and you think, okay, this is it. I don't need to move on. Life is good. He's been changed. And one thing I always tell survivors and the team at Victim and Witness Support is, and it's a basic human principle, you can't change other people. You can desire for them to be changed. You can have ideas as to how they should live, but you really can't change anyone else with even your good intentions.
No,
and the
that's
other
something
thing,
your grandparents always say.
Yeah, and the other thing I always tell persons that domestic violence and that cycle that continues, it will only stop with an intervention. Very rare it stops just on its own. After the honeymoon phase, that just lasts, and it's just honeymoon down the line for years. Domestic violence stops with intervention. What intervention looks like? A report to the police, and there's a consequence to the action. So without that action being identified and labeled for what it is as wrong, as a crime, and there being a consequence, we're going to have that happening again. And sometimes replicated, unfortunately, in our children's lives when they become adults. So it's really for us to acknowledge that, listen, what I've been doing is wrong. And that's why we tell abusers, when they change, or if they're going to a life that is more healthy, you need to now have a conversation with your children. Let them know that what mom or dad was doing, that was wrong. and begin to walk that way. But having a third party come in now to support the intervention, be it the police, be it a therapist, but not just a therapist alone. However, I recommend with some effects, some consequences. Now, you could go to the magistrate and the magistrate can say, you know what, I've identified change and there isn't going to be a sentence or so. Maybe you all can get some further therapy or so. That's up to the court to decide.
All right. We've still got so much more to talk about. Remember, you can pose your questions via our TTT Live online Facebook page, and you can also give us a call at 622-4010 because we've still got more of the conversation to come. We'll be right back.
Are you on board yet? Don't line up. Sign up and enjoy the convenience of the direct deposit system from the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. Yes, convenience is at your fingertips when you sign up to receive your disability assistance and public assistance grants and senior citizens pension directly from your bank account. No need to worry. Your money is safe and free from fraud and theft. So avoid lining up and try signing up. Log on to www.social.gov.tt or visit your local board office for more details and sign up today. Remember, direct deposit. It's fast, it's easy, and it's safe. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, helping, empowering, transforming lives.
Welcome back. It's Family Time. Let's talk. We are talking violence. Family violence is a cycle. Bystander apathy and secondary victims as well. You can contribute to the discussion, to the conversation. Ask your questions via our TTT Live online Facebook page, or you can give us a call at 622-4010. And during the break, you know, we're having these conversations during the break because this is a conversation that we really, really need to discuss because this is real life. And someone was saying, you know, that they were in a relationship, and I'll pass this to Claire Guy Allen. He was in a relationship with someone, and he broke it off. And well, I suppose I don't want to say she became abusive, but she went to report him to the police station to say that he was abusive and that he was abusive towards her, which wasn't the case. And unfortunately, the police believed the story. And instances, yes, you want the police to believe a story when you actually take your story to the police, but it wasn't true. And the police actually went to the perpetrator, you know, the supposed alleged perpetrator, and threatened that individual. What would you, if these things happen, this is real life, what do we do?
I hope that this can stop. This kind of behavior within the TTPS needs to stop. And training again, it's eventually going to stop. But police officers need to understand we are enforcers of the law. And once someone comes to a station with an allegation, we must investigate that matter. And you see, that male victim, that when you don't create that atmosphere where persons feel they can come forward, male victims would refuse to come to the station and make a report. Yes? So we must investigate and see what is happening. But I'll tell you something. The statistics have shown that women and girls are the ones who are the victims, who are more affected by these sorts of crime. But that doesn't give the police officer a right to behave in a particular way when a male victim comes forward and makes the report. You understand?
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think all of us in this room agree with you. We have to get that out to the wider
biases.
public.
Yes, yes.
You know, every single report is to be taken seriously and
All.
investigated properly
Correct.
as well
Yes.
before acted upon.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, I want to talk about, as we're talking about support as well, and back to Aisha Kobe, how would one support someone who may be experiencing family violence? What kind of support can we give if we think that that's going on? Maybe we have reported it, maybe nothing has come of it. Who and how can we give that support?
Right. And first of all, it's really key if you're reporting, if you know someone that has made a report or somebody experiencing domestic violence, family violence, it's good to listen. Because we all have our own views, biases, social norms that we grew up with. And sometimes we may not always give that listening ear to the experience of the survivor or the victim. It's also good, I've seen, because we've been in this support realm, victim and witness that is, for the past 15 years. And I've seen victims report, return, and report, and sometimes return. And that's why we tell our officers, whenever the victim comes, we need to treat them as if it's the first time. So for family members or friends, if you want to support someone, be patient. Domestic violence and family violence is a very dynamic situation. There are a lot of factors at play. Persons are not willing to easily give up a home, a structure that they've invested financially, time, sweat, equity into. They're always not willing to leave their children with one parent because they may have grown up that way and don't want that. There are lots of other factors that may impact the decision whether to leave or not. So we want to encourage persons to be patient. If it is there is violence in the home or violence perpetrated against your relative or a friend, we try to avoid you keeping that a secret. Because the day you keep it a secret, it can be the day that you get a call or you see it on a newspaper. So we try to encourage you. You can go and talk to the police. Okay. You can go and come and speak to the victim and witness support units and get some professional guidance and advice. Sometimes persons go into this with expectations and they get invested into it because they expect that after months of me talking to you that you should make a move now. So they give up and they move on. So we're saying to try to be patient and try to avoid having expectations. But sometimes that's not easy.
It's not. It's not. Because, I mean, people want something done and, you know, they want to live a life, a normal life.
So that's why we encourage them to engage us at Victim and Witness Support because we're trained to do this. I mean, we see it happen because you as a relative, you may not have seen how this thing plays off, but we're able to then advise that person. And sometimes we are able to talk to the survivor.
Okay.
And educate them as to what is happening and what are the possibilities, because sometimes they may not be aware of all of the options that are available for them to live a safer, more productive life.
Would you say, oh, we've got a caller from Barrackpore. Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, my dear.
Barrackpore, good afternoon.
My question is totally directed to Ms. Guy Allen. Ms. Guy Allen, as a senior police officer, right? I myself am a very senior citizen.
Hello, good afternoon, Barrackpore.
At that time, they didn't have this issue of domestic violence and laws.
We're trying to get Barrackpore on the line because he has a question. But I wanted to ask as well the cycle of family violence and how that can be broken. I know you kind of hinted at it, you intimated at it. How can that be broken, that cycle?
Right. We must have intervention, as I mentioned before, whether it be police intervention, so there's a consequence to action, whether there is some therapeutic intervention alongside the police intervention, because sometimes persons may go to the Special Victims Department, make a report, and sometime after they may want to reconcile. That reconciliation should not take place just on its own independently. It should be accompanied by some therapeutic support, trained, as well as police monitoring.
Okay. Because
they can revert, right? And following that, I recommend once they're children, there must be a conversation.
Okay.
You must have a conversation with your children because all the time this was normal and now you're saying it's not. So, and being able now to hear the views of the children and educate them, right? Because somebody needs to be able to hold you accountable to this change that you're professing to walk into. And it helps. It helps with the family as well. So those are some of the ways that we would want persons to be mindful of. And you need to have an outside circle as well. Yes, you're a family and families are committed. It's important to have a social support circle. Trusted, reliable friends, not just friends that may take a side or have ill intentions or agendas. Trusted, reliable friends, whether you are into a faith-based space, whether it is you have parents or so that you are supportive to you. And we acknowledge that, I mean, some years ago we had the Women's Health Survey in Trinidad and Tobago, which showed that 1 in 3 women in Trinidad and Tobago have or may have experienced some level of violence. And oftentimes in those times, they would have reported it to their parents or their mothers, who at the time would have told them to go back and make it up.
That's it.
So we know that we're moving from that way of thinking. So I'm encouraging persons to not just tell their parents, but also get trusted persons that may be looking out for your benefit, that would tell you what is right regardless of how you may feel.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And if in doubt, they can also contact the National Family Services. Give us those numbers at which people can call to get in touch, make an appointment, come in, wherever, whatever they need to do.
So first up, we have 9 offices across the country, so we can get a social worker that is closest to you. But I want you to call head office because the social workers at head office always pick up the phone. And so that's 623-2608, extensions 6701 to 6711. So I'll say it again, 623-2608, extension 6701 to 6711.
Okay, great. Or they can go into any of the offices across the country as well.
Correct.
And
That's
it doesn't have to be, and I always say this, if you don't want to, it doesn't have to be where you live.
Right.
If you don't want someone to know that that's what you're doing, you can go outside to any of the others and they will welcome you and hear your story, advise you or tell you where you need to go and that various. But first thing I think you need to do is find someone to talk to, as you said, have that.
And if I could add to what Luke is saying, and finding someone to talk to is really key, especially when you're making a police report. So when you make a report to Superintendent Guy Allen, they would normally refer you to the Victim and Witness Support Unit. And what you would get there would be updates on your investigation. If you don't hear from the police officer, you'll also get guidance through the criminal justice system. How does the protection order work? How to make it work a little bit more effectively, and all other aspects of the investigation and psychosocial support.
We're almost come to the end of it. I think we need more time with this. But let me hear your final comments on this, Claire Guy Allen, and how people can get help quickly.
Right. I want to thank you for letting the TTPS have this forum where we can have this conversation, because having this conversation is key and critical to be able to solve it and to eradicate it. We can eradicate domestic violence. You see something, say something, let it be investigated, and create that atmosphere where victims and survivors feel comfortable to seek assistance at all time.
And Luke, Family Services Division.
Yep. Thank you so very much, and I absolutely enjoy the family time Let's Talk. I mean, it's one of the most important things for us because we're moving to focus more on making sure that families are whole again. Family violence is so, I'm trying to find the word. You know what? Come in, seek our services.
That's it.
Call the number 623-2608 or come into one of our offices. There's always going to be a social worker there to guide you through the process.
And that is a very impassioned plea. So please, you heard. I mean, it doesn't have to, mother, father, son, daughter, child, neighbor, whoever it is. Please. Aisha Kobe, clinical psychologist.
Definitely. So there's hope. There's hope. We want to encourage persons not to continue suffering in silence. You contact any of my colleagues here or the victim and witness, 612-1954. Any type of crime that you've experienced trauma. So there's hope. So Trinidad and Tobago, let's put our hands together. It's not just the job of the TTPS, but let's just put our hands together. And I applaud TTT, I applaud NFS on this program because collectively we have the solutions to this.
Yes.
We just need to continue to be committed to work together in the long haul.
Yeah. But everything rests with us. With us, the family, with us, the individual, with us, our neighbors, our friends. You know, if you think that you're not seeing something get done, you know that there's some sort of violence taking place in a family, don't have that apathy. Do something about it,
Definitely.
please. Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you all so very much. Don't just record it and post it. No, please. Thank you, Aisha Kobe, Claire Guy Allen, and Luke Sinnett. Thank you for being here for this edition of It's Family Time Let's Talk. and for joining us this afternoon. Our viewers at home as well, and those who sent in those questions, try to call us as well. And you can join us at the same time next week for another edition of It's Family Time. Let's talk. My name is Rhea Rupchansing, and on behalf of all of us here at TTT, do have a great afternoon.